And welcome to the Crash the Pond podcast. It is a Tuesday, September 3rd edition of the pod, and coming at you live here. For some folks, we're a little off schedule today, but we're going to make it work. We're going to have a great show. We actually have a great guest today, President and CEO of a parent media company, Inc., Neil Bruninger. He is going to be joining us here in just a few minutes, so not right away, but he is the CEO of the parent company that owns Victory Plus, the Ducks' new streaming platform. And so we're going to get his thoughts on how that all came together, what to expect, kind of just the lay of the land streaming wise. So that should be fun. But for the next few minutes, we're gonna riff. We're gonna do it live.
We're doing it live. We're having a good time until Neil ends up joining us. But the big news of the day, Felix, the big news. Why don't we just do what you and I were talking about before we went live?
There was big news today.
The Ducks announced their rookie Faceoff roster.
Oh, okay.
And Beckett Seneca is no longer in the 30s. He is now number 45.
I mean, I feel like you framing this as big news, you kind of set us up for disappointment here, but that's okay.
Sorry, folks.
Yeah. So, we're kind of in this awkward phase of the off season where things are, winding back up, but they're also still not at all started yet. And so for those who maybe didn't know, Beckett Seneca back during development camp, he was wearing number 38, which was Derek Grant's number, if you'll remember. And now on this roster sheet for the rookie faceoff, he is listed as number 45, which is his actual number. It's the number that he wore for the Oshawa Generals. It's the number that he wore in youth hockey. So that is 100% his number. And this goes very much against the Ducks' philosophy of making rookies wear a number that they don't like, or I should say they don't like, but that they don't want early on in their careers, and then eventually transitioning out into their number of choice.
Yeah.
And we're actually seeing kind of maybe a bit of a change, because last preseason, Leo Carlsson came in and he wore his number 37 for a little bit, the number that was given to him, then switched to number 91. They let him get number 91 before the season started. And then we saw Cutter Gauthier be allowed to wear number 61, his number. And so this would seem to be a continuation of that.
Yeah, the only kind of difference there, and by the way, Ken Pafu let me know my volume seems a little low, so please let me know how this sounds now. But a little bit different though with Olen Zellweger and Pavel Minchikov, because it's unclear whether or not they're going to get new numbers, but maybe it's just something for really high draft picks that they're doing with Beckett Seneca. Maybe Cutter Gauthier is, I think, a weird one, because I think 61 is in some ways a rookie number still.
But it's not the number they were going to give him. He asked for it.
That's fair. Whereas Beckett Seneca, yeah, like you look at any picture of him from playing in junior, he wore number 45 during that time period. So this feels like this is his number. This is not necessarily a rookie number. And he has big shoes to fill, not necessarily from a forward perspective, but at least Sami Vatanen was a fun player for the Ducks. That to me is the player that really is the number 45 that I can really remember as a Duck.
It's funny because the one that comes to mind for me is Andy Walensky.
Why is that?
And I don't know why.
You mentioned that before we went live, and I'm just like, why are you using him instead of Vatanen?
Am I getting it wrong? Is that not Andy? Is that not the one that wore number 45?
Andy Walensky did wear it. You are correct.
Okay.
He did wear it at one point.
Yeah. I mean, nothing wrong with a little Andy Walensky name drop, a little shout out.
Yeah. Let's see. While we're fully just having a good time and riffing, here are the number 45s: Scott McKay, Matt Colin, Sean Thornton, Sami Vatanen, Andy Walensky, and how could you forget Colton White?
Oh, that was the guy I was thinking of, because I feel like Colton White and Andy Walensky were kind of like the same archetype of player.
That's fair.
That like seventh defenseman, puck moving guy. Were they both right-hand shots? I feel like they might have been. Colton White was a lefty, never mind. So, yeah, interesting. That's really the big takeaway here.
Yeah.
Nothing else to talk about. I mean, some interesting notes here, just looking at this roster for the rookie faceoff, though. Sam Colangelo will be there, which I think will be good for him just to kind of get acclimated. And then, going down the list, I think the biggest name is Tristan Luneau, who...
Cutter Gauthier also.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess we knew he was going to be there, so
Fair.
it wasn't much of a surprise. But seeing Tristan Luneau, I think, is probably the biggest headline for me, just because he didn't play. He basically didn't play for half the season last year, had a very sporadic start going back and forth between the Ducks and the Gulls. And so this will be the first time we've seen him play actual competitive hockey, although you can debate how competitive the rookie faceoff is since last year, since 2023.
Yeah.
So this is a big moment for him.
Yeah, yep, definitely. And I think it's going to be fun. The Ducks also announced that all the games are going to be streamed on their website with Steve Carroll and Emerson Edom broadcasting them. So you're going to get a chance to watch them. Hopefully the camera angles are better than what we've seen at previous rookie tournaments. Where
Don't hold your breath.
Definitely don't hold your breath. But hopefully we get some good camera angles. But I think this is, like, you look at this group of players, and there's a lot of really fun players that are you're going to watch, a lot to see, I think, here. I think outside of the main names here, like I think you want to see a Sam Colangelo dominate, Cutter Gauthier dominate, Tristan Luneau dominate. But a player I'm really watching for as he's starting to really age up in this group and get to the point where he should be a dominant player is a Sasha Pastujov. Because I think that this is going to be a really important tournament for him. Because I think this is a huge season for him in general, with where he's at based upon his age. I think he needs to start taking steps into the NHL, into higher in the lineup in the AHL. And so I think this could be a very big jumping off point for him.
Yeah, I think it is really difficult to kind of weigh these tournaments because on one hand, they are playing against their peers. They're playing against the prospect group of the other teams. So these are presumably the best of the best for each team's pool, or at least close to it. And so you do want to give that some weight that they're doing well in this kind of like intense, abridged, abbreviated format. But at the same time, like, it is a very short stint. It's a sprint, really. And you don't want to put too much weight into it either. Like, for example, last year, Leo Carlsson looked fantastic in the rookie faceoff, as expected. That shouldn't really move the needle for anything. But it was still noteworthy because of how he did it. His skating looked really good. And then Pavel Minchikov also looked great in that tournament. And those would prove to be kind of like bellwethers because those guys would end up making the team. But I would say that that's more of the exception to the rule. Even if a guy looks good in a tournament, you're still going to, for me at least, I'm still going to put more weight into a preseason game, obviously a regular season game, but it's just an interesting time to be able to evaluate the player, look at what they've worked on over the summer, the strengths and weaknesses of their game, and just to kind of see them all on the ice together. It's still like a really cool, fun time for really any fan, but especially if you're a fan of prospects.
Yep, definitely. Anything else on the rookie tournament you want to hit on? If not, we can get some questions as we're vamping before Neil joins us here. Oh,
there he is.
Actually, there he is. Neil is about to join us right now, so let's do that. So,
hey, guys.
Hey.
Apologize again.
Neil, thank you for joining us.
It's a little quiet in here in the office. I was wondering if anyone was going to be around.
I'm loving this background. So for those who can't see, if you're not watching on YouTube, but Neil's in his office, so we thank him for that. And he's got like multiple monitors in the background. I don't know if the different channels it looks like, but putting our backgrounds to shame here. So
yeah,
thank you for that.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we kind of have a scenario where each one of the TVs are dependent on the area that they're in, right? So we have multiple TVs in the background to ensure that we have timed great video for kids. So there's a background for me is I've built a streaming service solely for children called Cadoodle TV, and have made some interesting strides in the streaming world based on that. So we can get into it here shortly.
Yeah, well, I will just thank you once again for joining us. You're the first.
Definitely.
You're the first guest in the history of our show to come straight off of a flight and onto the podcast. that hasn't been done before. So you're
amazing.
You're really breaking new ground. New ground.
I'm just here to please tell me. I'm excited to join and to kind of hear about your guys' story as well, and dive into what we're doing. There's just so many things happening all at once. September is an important month for us as we launch and our Victory Plus platform for sports, and again with the Stars and the Ducks. And a combination of a bunch of other content that will be live with Red Bull and a combination of things. So there's lots of great stuff to chat about, and just excited to hear kind of what your guys' take on what we're doing in the streaming world.
Well, tell us how it came together, because the Ducks were in limbo for a little bit there, broadcasting wise, and then all of a sudden we get the news drop just a couple weeks ago. How did we get to this point where Victory Plus is now the streaming partner of the Ducks?
Oh man, I have
hard-hitting questions.
Best friends, I would say. I can start from the very beginning. Earlier days, I actually started working with the likes of Jimmy Lights, who was the former CEO and president of the Dallas Stars. And I had, coming right out of university, I started with a streaming tech company. I was probably the kid that would get pizza under the door as they kind of locked me in a room to get things done. And through that process, learned a ton around the space in general. And then again, started really connecting with, Jim Lights and a lot of the business development around hockey. He was in that limbo phase in 2008 and 2011. When obviously there was a bit of a recession in the United States and in Canada, and I had the fortunate benefit of working with him hand in hand on the business development side, and he introduced us early days to the actual the NFL, the NHL, tennis channel. Essentially he brought his expertise from the sports world into the tech space that we had, this compression algorithm that allowed for high definition television / video to basically stream over low bandwidths. So we kind of came into the tech world that was in 2009 and 10. So early days, over 15 years ago now. And then in the process of that, we recognized that, we would have to have billions of dollars to acquire, sports rights specifically, especially early days, traditionally. And so my business partner, Mike Lowe, and I decided to change our thought process and build a direct-to-consumer product for kids. First off, to keep them safe, recognizing what was going on with YouTube. Netflix didn't even have a kids section. We were really early days in building a streaming service for safety purposes. And then again, there was a cost-effective way of doing this. We weren't spending, hundreds of millions of dollars on rights. So by doing so, we've learned a lot. Our thesis was everything was going to streaming eventually. Users were changing their viewing habits online. They were, cord nevers. I'm 41 years old, actually. I don't want to date myself, but I haven't had a cable subscription since I was living with my parents, 25 plus years ago.
Yeah.
So it just we knew what was coming from a streaming perspective. We understood that the televisions and the OEMs and the TV manufacturers were in a position to eventually capitalize on the real estate they were putting out there in the marketplace. And we wanted to get ahead of the curve. So by doing so, we built our streaming tech in the kids market, Cadoodle TV. If you have kids, check it out. It's great. We have a lot of great content on there.
Got a 2-year-old.
Yeah. You have how old is he?
2 years old.
2 years old. Perfect. So
yeah.
Again, I got another cadoodler for the the service itself. It's it's endearing, and we have an incredible how do I say team. We're 200 plus people now, and we have grandparents that utilize look at all the content, ensure that it's great. You can imagine that their safety is first for them. So we have a great story around that. Needless to say, understanding the verticals and what we had in streaming, and had to build out ad technology specifically for kids, because the safety of kids is different. Mm-hmm. You can't track specific, there's rules and regulations around tracking. It's called COPA, the Child Online Protection Privacy Act, where anyone under 13 cannot be tracked and remarketed to. So, if you just jump into the default ad platforms in the market, you can't use them. It's all about advertisers trying to gain data and understand who their users are on the other side. And again, you cannot do that in the kids space. So we've had to build our own ad tech. And subsequently, it actually works specifically for sports, right? So it's unique in the marketplace based on the fact that you have, competitive separation issues for sponsors, right? And so our ad technology, in the process of doing all this, due diligence with the leagues, we've showcased that we can actually ensure that you have an ad that gets placed in those time slot allotted in real time, to ensure that you're not leaving money on the table. That's really the key behind our ad tech and our end-to-end video solution from a streaming perspective. And so in that process, we've found teams that have different needs. One is, access, because they've been in the RSN world with Bally's and in a position where they can't, find their users, know who their users are. They don't understand their data. They don't own their own destiny. So those are all aspects of kind of having a streaming service that you are a part of and you can utilize to ensure that you know who your fans are. And then again, with some Dallas Stars, for example, they're in a position where they have such a large jurisdiction, right? They have 47 million people, and it's massive. They need access, and by going, the old school way, perhaps, over the air and or through a carrier, they're in a position where they're limiting their audience size. And I think the Ducks felt the same way. They're like, we just want to ensure that our fans have our content for free, and be in a position where we can grow, their, I would say, brand equity in the market, and do something that is unique, which is giving back, right? And that's really kind of the true mission behind Victory Plus as a free direct-to-consumer streaming product for teams that want to go down that direction. So it's not for all teams, but the Ducks are all for it, and we're extremely excited to be a part of their story and them ours. And we have a lot of great, different features and experiences we're going to build. I mean, this is something digitally we can enhance and get great ideas from a live perspective. Even in this conversation now, having that as like, hey, we have a live game and we can actually have a conversation at the same time with real fans. Like, that's something that they love to hear and they want to be a part of. And so that's the exciting part, I think, for us, is to have that connection with the fans in a different way, and being able to give back the way that we're doing for a free direct-to-consumer service.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to commend you on that, first off, just because I think from having conversations with friends and things like that since this was announced, I think that this is one of the more exciting announcements, I think, from a media perspective for the Ducks. I have a buddy of mine who, him and I were roommates, watched all the games together, things like that, and hadn't watched them for a bit. Sent him a text about this, sent him a link. He's like, oh, I'll probably watch games this season because there's an easy way for me to be able to access games. And so it just seems kind of like that's what the route you're trying to take with this. That's the route the Ducks are trying to take with this. And I think that in a non-traditional market, I've lived in this market my entire life, that's how you grow the game. That's how you get eyeballs. And so I just think it's a really, really great way to be able to kind of go about it. And so kind of jumping off to a little different point, Felix, unless you have any more questions about
No, go for it.
But, well, Jake, what you said there, which is really key, it's growing the game of hockey, right? The sport of hockey. And that's something that, I think the league and a lot of teams are feeling, that there's been an alienation of generations of potential, hockey fans, right? Because they need to experience it the way that I experienced it for the first time when I was a kid, right? Yeah. And I'm a Canadian, so it's easy. I'm in Calgary, Alberta right now, and hockey's life. So it's a little bit different for us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think in a market like this, it's so critical. And so I think that's huge. But the question I want to ask you, so Aaron Teets was on the Ducks had their podcast, Light the Lamp. And one of the things he had mentioned, and you may not be able to answer this, it may be something that kind of has to stay on the back burner, but he had mentioned that it's going to kind of start out very similar to what has been seen by Ducks fans just from a broadcast, how it's going to look type of deal. But then as the season goes on, they want to innovate, want to make changes, want to really try to be on the front foot with anything with broadcast media, with how things look, how things are viewed. What do you kind of see that as on your side? What do you want to see, or how do you want to see the game change in terms of how it's being broadcasted, both by the Ducks and the Stars, with kind of this partnership that you have?
That's a great question. I think first off, we're in a position digitally where we can start giving real-time feedback to production for the first time and say, hey, these things are working. How do we build out almost a pipeline of content that is viewed differently for younger audiences? I mean, we work with Dude Perfect, right? We started, we white labeled our solution. We run their whole streaming service. They're bringing on a bunch of YouTube stars, and again, they're growing that user base, and they have an incredible production facility in what they do for their fans. I think what the Ducks and the Stars and a few other teams we're speaking with are going to start looking to those types of, I would say, production avenues, not to change the game, but to add to the game, right? And then potentially utilize digital technology to enhance the experience, to have more of a live aspect to the game that might be different. So you have multiple ways to watch the game opposed to just the one. So those are things that we're going to work on in behind the scenes, what are really important for fans moving forward. We've seen it. We've seen it online. We've seen the multi-broadcast versions of a game for different users. Again, Dude Perfect is on Thursday Night Football, and with Amazon, and they have their own feed, right? And they're just talking about what it is that they love about the game and doing tricks behind the scenes and having a more interactive kind of experience, which I think the teams are going to follow suit on moving forward. But in the time frame that we're working right now, we're in a position, again, as you can imagine, everyone's watching. Okay, everyone's watching, and we're not going to come in and change things overnight, right?
And it's a very tight turnaround with this just being announced.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean the press release said that you guys have currently a 2-year agreement and then open to extension after that. But during that time frame, I mean, you've already kind of touched on it, but how much of a two-way street do you envision this being? Because obviously you have your vision, the Ducks have their vision. How does that come together?
Well, I'll say our agreement's much longer than that. I think that was on another aspect of their rights from the traditional side. So digitally, we have a longer term with the Ducks. I think what we're trying to really understand is how over the air is going to complement the digital side of what we're building, right, with the Ducks. And then really kind of fine tune that process in a couple of years from now, right? So that could change on how access is really kind of depicted over the time, and utilizing data to really understand the next phase of our strategy from a digital standpoint.
Quick question for you on that, with you bringing up the over the air broadcast with the Ducks announcing that they're going to be on KCOP also. Is the broadcast going to be the same between the two of them? Are you going to look on Victory Plus to provide something to drive people to the product over if they have a cable subscription, or like myself, I have YouTube TV to be able to watch different things, but definitely going to be checking out Victory Plus also. Are there going to be kind of additional aspects to the stream on Victory Plus to drive people to that platform?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have all of their content, right? As another form of again, the shoulder content, live interviews, and really producing different types of content that will be only accessible on Victory. So that's an important part. Yep. We also have another library of different content that we're bringing to the table, which will be unique to us as well. So very sports orientated. So you're not, you're really, this is like a crossover almost of Fubo TV and DAZN, right? Where you're going to get additional content that will hopefully keep you around to watch a little more. And the Ducks are really going to drive that through different aspects of content that we help them produce. And then I think down the road with different, as I mentioned earlier, with different streams and potentially, ideas around what type of products can be digitally enhanced will change the experience and drive people to Victory Plus. But they will be marketing Victory as their again, as the home for the Ducks specifically for their games. Yeah.
And how important was it for you to, I guess, optimize the experience for each device? Because this was a big thing that came up on the previous carrier was, the mobile experience wasn't necessarily the best. Is that something that
Yeah.
you had in mind when going through this with the Ducks, that, hey, we want this to be a great experience across devices?
Yeah, Felix. I mean, if you download Dude Perfect, it's probably a really good example of what you'll see, and you're going to see additional feature sets as well. And we've been doing this for over a decade now, so we really have a great team behind us that is just so motivated to create the best experiences for our fans. And as long as we are serving the fans and ensuring that device, that experience is at the highest quality and it's relevant, then we know we're going to win together, right? So that's super important. Is quality is everything right now, especially as we look at streaming, and removing those barriers to entry. Free is truly the way for us to grow this opportunity to get outside of. You guys are passionate. you're gonna lean in. I'm sure you were paying Bally's last year, depending on, or the year before that, depending on you found the content online one way or another, because that's possible too. We won't say we won't mention any websites, but again, we're removing those excuses, and again, once you jump into the app, if it's live, it'll start playing, and you can again pause, rewind, do whatever you need to do to ensure that you get the best experience within that ecosystem.
I have a random question, kind of. It's related to all this, but not necessarily one I had typed up. But you talking about that made me think about this. Let's just say the Ducks make the playoffs in the next year or two. How I think, what was it? The first round or second round would always be carried by local broadcasters. Is that the deal that's in place with Victory Plus, where the first round, or maybe it was the first two rounds, would be carried by Victory Plus first round?
Yeah,
so that's in place also.
Yeah, okay. You got it. Yeah, that's really important to us, and I think it's again important to them as well to ensure that locally that content is available to the fans. And there's other things that we're a tech company first, so there's other ways that we want to ensure that data is available in real time, and we can look at different ways of, I'm not going to give out too many secrets here, because again, we got to showcase what we can do opposed to talk about it, and it's important for us to do those things and ensure that the Ducks and all of our teams, the Stars, are reaping the benefits of our over a decade of experience. But enhancing this experience is going to be really interesting for us, and we're going to show some interesting kind of, I would say, virtual ways of kind of experiencing the actual content as well, right? And the live games. So there's some things behind the scenes. We've hired well. We don't hire people that need a job. They're passionate about what we do.
It sounds like with your history, you've done a really good job with that.
Yeah, thank you.
And as you watch hockey today, and watching the different partners with the NHL or different teams, are there any areas of opportunity that you see, like, oh, that's something where maybe we can do a little better, or we can add something differently? Just not necessarily about Victory Plus, but just your own vision for where the sport is going, on TV or on screens, I should say.
Yeah, Felix, I think the biggest thing that I feel the league is really excited about is what we're bringing from our marketing experience of a kid's product, right? Because again, it's the fans of the future that they're trying to engage with again, and be relevant in the homes of families, which is very important. And so we have that again, that overall experience, not only with Cadoodle TV, but with Dude Perfect. You should see this. These guys sell out stadiums, and they have live, events that we have again streamed live, and we've had in-arena experiences where you can have a secondary screen and vote on and win things with in the arena. And those are things that we're bringing to the table. So that all those things have to really be a part and coupled in. So when you're in the arena, you still want to have Victory on your phone, because you're going to see something different, and you can win a prize, right? You can win certain things. Like we're kind of bringing, we're crossing over into the home as an arena experience, and then vice versa. We're bringing a secondary experience into the arena, which is really important to the next phase of our opportunity with the Ducks and other teams.
Yeah, that's a really, really cool idea. As you mentioned, though,
don't tell anyone.
Oh,
Yeah.
No one listens to this podcast
anyway,
no
it's
one will
fine.
hear this. No, everyone
Yeah.
listening, keep it on download, keep it cool. So you've mentioned this, and then I know Aaron Teets on his interview mentioned this kind of content's king. There's going to be a whole channel on Victory Plus for additional Ducks content outside of games. And I know in the past, the Ducks have done their Ducks Weekly show. We're kind of doing off the ice look at players and things like that. Is there any kind of off or any type of wish, I guess, from your side as you're talking with the Ducks for something for them to do? If it's something like a behind the scenes weekly type show, like an HBO 24/7, something like that. Is there anything that you would go to the Ducks and say, this is something we would want to see done, or I guess your wish list for that?
I think there's an aspect of content production that they are really good at, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're in California. And this is something that I'm recognizing more than prior to. Like, I've had conversations with lots of teams, right? Not just Stars and the Ducks, and each team bring a different element of an expertise that we're excited to work with. And I think production is going to be a real big one for the Ducks. I mean, they're gonna toe the way in how they want to build a story and tell that story, right? Because Aaron is a production guy, right? And he's been a part of these things, and I think there's a ton of opportunity to work with them and other teams, and even have cross promotions. You see this with YouTubers all the time. I was just like, hey, why don't we have the Stars, two of the Stars guys, or have a golf scramble against four Stars golfers and four Duck golfers, and then film it and have a great time with it. Like, there's just all this other content that I think fans want to get to know each other. They want to get to know the athletes, and that's something that I think is really important, where they understand and there are ways to do that and have that live and build in that type of content that I think is very popular right now and a little more relevant. And then again, they really want to build in storytelling with their athletes, and documentaries are definitely going to be a part of this. We're also getting a short list of all the historical games, right? So that's really important. The NHL has been very, 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 adamant on supporting this, and so that's really important to us. So you'll see some historical games, some of the top games that from back in the day. How you can't get access to that, right? Just sitting,
I was going through hockey withdrawals last week, and I legitimately was searching for old Ducks games from the mid 2010 playoff runs, from just trying to find something to watch to fill the hole in my heart right now until the season starts.
Yeah, my business partners, two boys, they've never seen Mighty Ducks, and I put that on 2 weeks ago, and they're like, "This is awesome! How have we not seen this?"
And now funny. They're Ducks fans and not Flames fans, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm doing my best, but I mean, hey guys, the options are endless, right? And I think it's gonna. I think with the Ducks and the Stars and the other teams that we're currently in discussions with, they want to get closer to the fans so they can be more relevant, right? That is so important to them. And it's one thing to create an incredible experience in arena. They've never had control to do it in the home, right? It's always been a rights fee, and so this is the first time where they can say, hey, the tech is there. We always wanted to accomplish this and move in this direction. Now we can really kind of give back in a way that is going to, again, ensure that fans are receiving what they deserve, right? That's really good. You have to do as much as you possibly can to be relevant, and that's what they're leaning in on. So it's really, really exciting to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, I think that you've kind of answered this question through all your different responses, but looking into your crystal ball here.
I apologize.
No. I mean, I think someone could probably guess what you'd say to this, but I'm curious what your response is. Looking into your crystal ball, the future of kind of sports media and streaming, broadcasting, especially in the U.S. right now, it's definitely in a state of flux with everything that's going on with the different companies. Where do you see it going? What's this going to look like 5-10 years from now?
I think the sport of hockey is going to grow exponentially, based on just people finally getting a chance to experience it, right? That's the main thing why free is so important right now. It's such an incredibly intense game, and the second you go to a game and you sit in a seat, you're a lifer. It truly is, and we want to ensure that happens as much as possible. That content is so incredibly powerful, and how do we ensure that new fans of the future get access to it and they can watch it? And I think incentivizing users and building in ways to watch it differently is going to be important. And that's definitely on our roadmap moving forward. And it's I don't want to say it's the passive user, but it's great content. And if it's accessible, they will come across it, watch it, and then in turn become fans. And that's, I think the sport of hockey is going to grow over the coming years and decades to come. And again, and finding, it's just such a, again, like I said, it's such a I love hockey. I'm Canadian too, but I think having that ability to share that is just so unique for us, and something that I'm not saying we fell into it, but we recognized the opportunity and we took it, and that's a really important part. And being a part of what's next is we never know, but virtually there's going to be different camera angles. You're going to have it, in a way where you can experience every camera differently, right? And potentially even be in the position of a player on the ice. There's just so many things I think that we can push the envelopes on the tech side. And as connectivity becomes more and more powerful and accessible, then it creates more opportunities for us to kind of push those experiences.
Yeah, and I think the Ducks being kind of a young, up-and-coming team, a lot of young talent, I think that's kind of meshed well with kind of this new environment, players that are probably going to be willing to do that, which I think is going to probably be huge for that. But, all right, I got a fun, off-the-beaten-path type of question. So you mentioned growing up a big hockey fan, love the sport, everything like that, excited to bring it to different people. So if you could change one drastic thing about the way hockey is broadcasted, what would it be? And this is can be something very small, can be something very big. I know Jeff Merrick has always said that he thought the ice should be blue so that players could be seen better on TV.
For the example. Yeah.
So as an example, if there's one thing that you would change kind of going into this that you think would enhance a hockey broadcast, what would you do?
That's a very interesting question. Well, first off, we've done the hardest thing is ensuring that local games are out there for free. So that's number one.
Right? That is a huge one.
That's probably the most important, as you can imagine. Like I'm like guys, I'm bringing you to the present day, but still, it is a very important part of what we're doing here. And again, the league's watching, everyone's watching at that level, and they want to ensure that this business model works. We know it's going to work because we've done it a few times now. So it's not like this is our first rodeo. So that's number one. Geez, that's a tough question. I would love another example. A blue ice is interesting. I think interactive ways, which I believe we're going to bring to the table in arena. I know there's like trivia and you can kind of get kind of bring that in, but I think building in a new experience on your device, everyone has one, to watch the game in a way differently in arena will be very, very, very important part of this next phase, right? Building in multi-camera angles and giving access to the fans and ensuring that they're just more in tune with everything going on, because there's so much happening as a production. I didn't know this either. Like I went down and I'm new to this. We have a production team now. A year ago we didn't have a production team, so and Jason Walsh is legendary in the space, and he's been the executive producer for Fox Sports and Bally's, subsequently Bally's. And he moved over, recognizing what we're doing digitally. He's like, oh man, this is the future. And I got to bring my experience here. I think having just, genuine conversations like we're having right now is going to be more relevant to new fans, and ensuring that they have some type of 3D experience in a way that's different that I feel we can bring to the table. not tomorrow, but soon. It will definitely change the way that younger audiences experience it in their virtual worlds, right? So that next broadcast could be in other, I would say, virtual worlds that will potentially, well, it'll be completely live, and we can build that out, but potentially look almost identical, or you can have it animated. I mean, we're in a kid space too, right? So there's just different aspects of the game. I think we can build on moving forward. That if you're in that virtual world, Jake, you can have your own character sitting there along with it and almost be on the ice there, like in that space. Like, it's just different. And maybe paint something on a helmet, and all of a sudden that helmet gets, printed for the next game. There's all these things that I think you can do that I think, kids and younger audiences are going to lean in on if they could know that, hey, I just designed a new helmet because I went online on virtually and the game was playing, but I still did it with, their favorite player. Then that would be a different way of engaging with an audience, right? And so there's things there that I think are really, really important to bring the game into other worlds, is what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really cool answer. And one thing I even thought about is like how expensive like an on the glass seat is, and if you could have a broadcast or a camera angle that allows you to watch the entire game there, so people who don't have the ability, don't have the funds to see that, where they can watch a game from there, see how fast the game is from being that up close, and things like that. Something as simple
exactly.
as that.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think as we get ideas and now we have the options to try them out, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's not, again, we're so close to it now from a production standpoint that, the teams are going to lean in and work with us on it. So.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned about kind of being able to choose your visual experience, people talk a lot about like the puck tracker, the puck trail that you'll see on a broadcast, like being able to choose the color of the puck tracker, or seeing the player numbers, things like that. That could be really cool. Well, we don't want to take up too much of your time here, Neil.
I was going to say one last thing, Felix.
Okay.
The biggest annoyance that I always have is data coming to my phone before I see the play.
Okay.
Yep.
Preaching to the choir here. Yeah.
And we are going to fix that. That is something that we're going to ensure that, our games on Victory are, AKA real time, right? And so we have tech that will stream that content at, as fast as broadcast or even sooner. So then that in real time you're getting the real feed. So that's something that we're really focused on. Game 2, 3, 4 might not be there, but it's, we just have to show them this piece of it because the trucks are something that are really important. We have other ways of doing it. And I think it's going to be, a transitional season to showcase what that looks like. And I'm telling you, it's going to change how quickly and how clear and everything that comes along with it. So that streaming tech behind the scenes will be, one of the major things that I think, brings other even sports teams alongside with us.
Yeah, well, that would be huge.
I'm just going to say that the delay on the streams in the past have been something that has come up quite a bit. So I don't know if that was an intentional bit of information by you, but it works. It works either way.
I'm going to do my job right, I promise.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we're really looking forward to it. I'm much more excited now than I was before this conversation. Hopefully, everyone else listening had that same experience, and I'm sure we'll chat again down the road.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of check back in a couple of months here, or maybe by the end of the season to see how things are coming along. And if you guys have ideas, just send them my way because I love this stuff. It's geeking out is my favorite part of it. So
no longer come to the right place.
I was a product guy. Now I'm not allowed. So I'm just going to kind of put over my ideas into the idea box and let them go. So, but guys, it's great meeting you both, and I'm excited to see how this season begins. It's going to be a great season for us.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Abe. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, that was a really good time. Thank you
That
so
was
much for Neil for coming on with us.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone for listening and tuning in. That was a lot of fun. Really charismatic guy. Really seems to believe strongly in what he's doing, which I think
And
is great.
I think I mentioned it on the last episode that I think because of having YouTube TV, I was probably going to watch a lot on KCOP and then check out Victory Plus when needed. I think after that conversation, I think I'm definitely going to be watching the games on Victory Plus because I think I want to see what they bring and support something like this. I think that's the other side of it. I get it from some people out there that, like me last week, that would have probably just gone for the easier route of watching games on their cable, things like that. But I think when you look at what Neil is trying to bring to the market, what he's trying to do, this is in some ways a very commendable thing. Like trying to make this free for users, free for the local market. And I think if you have the ability, if you have good enough streaming, if you have a way to watch it, I think watching it on Victory Plus to get the advertising revenue, make it to show that this is a long-term suitable format.
Viable.
Viable. There we go. I think we all should, and make sure that kind of you are providing input on that live to be able to help make it a better experience. And it sounds like that's what he wants. And I think that
the other thing too,
go ahead,
is that this is potentially huge because you have to realize that these broadcasting companies have basically had a monopoly for the last however many decades, right? Like
25. This is as long as I can remember in my entire lifetime, the Ducks have been on Prime Ticket or Fox Sports 2.
Like, yes, it is an agreement between the league and, the broadcasting partners. But at the end of the day, it's effectively shut out everyone else. And so now that door is open just a smidge, now you're seeing companies come in like Victory Plus who, like you said, we're a tech company. That's not how a broadcasting company would describe itself. And so I think that approach is going to just potentially change everything, and we'll see if it's for the best or not. But I think that it's been a long time coming that this monopoly needs to be busted up, and I'm not holding my breath that that'll happen right away, but this is like potentially the start of teams seeing, oh, actually we're way better off with with our own partners than having the league mandated partner. And then from there, at the end of the day, Gary Bettman and the NHL do what the owners want. And so if the owners see this as a good thing, then potentially this becomes a norm.
And Henry Samueli does have a lot of sway within the NHL.
Yeah. And
so I think that this is a big opportunity, and I'm very excited to see what can happen. I'm very excited to see what they can do. And, that was just a really, really fun conversation with Neil.
Well, the other thing that was interesting to me was a lot of the kind of digital integration that he was talking about, like, he kind of hinted at it, but like alternative broadcasts, like if we can get a broadcast that's potentially, like someone said in the chat, like Timo Solani and Paul Kariya while the game, like that would be really cool.
Yeah,
that would be really cool.
I was gonna say this, but I don't think he would commit to this because they're paying broadcasters for a reason. But a stream that just has no commentary, that just is the
I was gonna bring that up, but we were running short on time.
The sound of hockey.
But I do think that that's more on the table now because probably. they can just try it, or they can do it after the game. That's what the UFC has been doing. They've been releasing no commentary version of fights, but they'll do it after the fact, and it's great. People love it.
And I mentioned this, but the Ducks are kind of this really fun up-and-coming young team. A lot of young players, whether it's Trevor Zegras, Leo Carlsson. Mm-hmm. These are all guys that, you look at what Leo Carlsson's TikTok was before the Ducks made him scrub it. But these are, like, personable guys. And I think that you bring a new type of content creation to these types of guys to be able to make them more marketable. I think that it's just going to be a home run with that.
Well, it's like what he brought up with, the crossover thing with the Stars and Ducks, like golf thing. Like that's a great idea.
Like personally, I'm not a huge Spit and Chicklets guy, but I watched the golf video they did with Cole Caulfield and Trevor Zegras.
But that's what they've done well is market the players, essentially. Yeah,
exactly. And so it's like that type of stuff. If you get Trevor Zegras and Mason McTavish versus, I don't know, Wyatt Johnson and
Jason Robertson.
Yeah. Just have those guys out there, get their personalities out there, and have a good time.
Yeah. I think that it just feels like now all of a sudden everything is on the table as opposed to like you just know what you're going to get, cookie cutter. So yeah, excited. Well, we're close to the hour mark. Maybe we can run through some questions and get on out of here.
Sure.
Does that sound okay?
Sure. We got 3 questions on Discord, and then we got 1 on Twitter, and then Twitch and YouTube. We appreciate all of you, but we're going to get on out of here and make this kind of a quick show for us. Drake Duquesne asked us, do you feel there's a recency bias in these prospect rankings? I think this is specific with the athletic ones that have come out. Feels like when we got Cutter Gauthier, the hockey world was super high on him, but now the flame has dimmed a bit. Curious if anyone else has noticed this.
Well, this is something that we went through doing our own prospect ranking for the Ducks system, is that it's just hard to compare a guy who is 2-3 years out from his draft to a guy who was just drafted. And I think that it's not really recency bias, although you can view it that way. It's just that, well, that player has more development runway. They're younger. There's still more hope for them, for lack of a better word. Whereas, for prospects that have been around, they've been more scrutinized, more analyzed. So, yeah, maybe there is a recency bias, but I think that there's actually a good reason for it. It's just very difficult to weigh these things when you're comparing prospects across different age groups.
Yep, I agree with that. Patrick said Felix is the GM of the Habs and Jake is the GM of the Ducks. The proposed trade is every player the Ducks have drafted in the last 3 drafts for every player the Habs have drafted in the last 3 drafts. Who says no? Me.
I feel like that must be a joke.
Definitely me. Bonus, you totally don't have to answer. Same question for the Blackhawks, Sharks, and Blue Jackets.
Actually, I think I might say no.
Blackhawks say no.
I might say no to the original question.
I say no for the Duck side, but Blackhawks say no.
Same question. Oh, for the Shark. Oh, so Blackhawks to Ducks, Sharks to Ducks.
Yeah, for the last 3 drafts.
I mean, would
Bedard.
you rather have Connor Bedard or everyone else?
That's the tough part.
I think if you were on Truth Serum, you would probably say Connor Bedard.
Yeah.
I think the correct answer is probably Connor Bedard, but I think that there's also a great case to say no. The Ducks have so many different types of pieces that you're just going to roll with those guys.
The
but
Sharks, I would take the Ducks. I would say no.
the Sharks have made it a lot closer with this last
Yes.
draft, and then the Blue Jackets.
It's the
Blue
Ducks say
Jackets
no.
it's the same thing where I think it's like they've come up recently. But I think that the closest one is the Blackhawks because it's like you can have Connor Bedard. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. And then let me we got one Twitter question for us from Hockey South saying, hope you guys had a nice Labor Day. If you get to questions, where do more goals come from this season? The power play, young forwards, the defense, veterans, more possession, new 5v5 system. Basically, where do you think more goals will come from this season?
I mean, I think the answer is all of the above.
I think it's going to be Zegras. Zegras playing a full 82, Carlson progression, Terry having Zegras with him.
I mean, really, it's the health of the forwards, and then that just kind of bleeds into everything else.
Yep.
Because, we can talk about the power play and tactics and all of that, but if the best guys are the best guys and they are healthy, that kind of fixes a lot of power play stuff. Like Rich Kloon may have some great ideas, but ideas look a lot better when you have Trevor Zegras, Leo Carlson, McTavish, Minchukov, all those guys out there together. So
Yep. So that is it for questions for us.
I had a question for you.
Okay.
Deferred contracts. So I'm going to frame this in this way. There was a contract that was signed over the weekend, Seth Jarvis. I forget the exact number, but he deferred a bit of money so that money will be paid out to him after the contract expires, and he will actually, his AAV will be lower, so his cap hit to the team will be lower. It gives them more flexibility. And I think some people kind of jumped on this and were like, oh, this is going to, this is something the Ducks should do. This is something that is going to become a trend. Where are you out on that?
It's not going to be a trend. I mean, this is something that is not player friendly at all.
It's not.
Like the issue here is people are looking at the Ohtani deal. The reason why Ohtani was able to make that deal that he made, for those that don't know, when Ohtani signed the mega deal, I think he's making like $1 million per year, and the rest of it's all deferred over the second 10 years after that deal. The reason he can make that deal is that he has so many sponsors that he's going to make up more than that over those years. But the issue here is that money now is always going to be more than money in the future because of the fact of inflation, because of cap rising, because of or inflation primarily. Like,
well, for the player, the money in their pocket. Yeah,
exactly. Like, if a player were to get $5 million today versus $5 million 5 years down the line, $5 million today could become more if
you can invest it.
Exactly. And so that's why I just don't see this ever becoming the case to defer money to after your contract because of that. And the only reason it makes sense for a player to do that is if they are willing to take a hometown discount to stay on a team that is competitive, but they still want to get paid a little bit more than that hometown discount. That's really the only time this comes into play.
Well, to me, the great test case for this was Leon Draisaitl because he got his deal today. I think it's like 8 years, 14 mil a year. And I thought that he would have a great case to do it because, or at least he would have a good argument for why he should do it because he's on a competitive team where every little inch of cap space is going to matter. I mean, if he got 14, I don't know what Connor McDavid's going to get. So money matters for them. He does live in Canada, so very high tax jurisdiction. You would think, hey, if I can just defer some of this money for later on, it'll probably have, lighter tax implications. It'll help my team currently. He probably has a lot of sponsors being a star athlete in Canada, all of that. And yet not a penny was deferred. And so it just kind of goes to show that at the end of the day, these guys don't make the kind of money that baseball players do where they can just go without all these millions of dollars right now. These guys want, deservedly so, they want the money right now. They want to be able to invest it, put the money to work. And that's, I'm with you where I don't see this really becoming a trend because it's asking a lot of the player. And I mean, there's really not much reward to them outside of, well, you have some guaranteed money after this contract and your team might hopefully be a little better, although you're putting a lot of trust into your management. So yeah, I don't really see this become, and also there was people saying, oh, well, this is now a way for teams to like circumvent the cap or whatever. This is like the new LTIR. And it's like, first off, no. But secondly, again, for a team to actually get to this point, you have to convince the player. And that's just almost like a non-starter.
Yep.
So anyway, thought that was interesting. What else was there?
The only other thing is just really the sad news that came out about the passing of Johnny Gaudreau. Just, I don't know. I don't have really a whole lot to say. I know you don't either, but just really, really sad. So thoughts go out to him, or his family, and everyone directly impacted in that situation.
I mean, I wish I had more to say, but honestly, there's nothing I can say that will have any bearing that will matter. And that's just, that's the shitty part. So,
yeah.
In lighter news, though, one thing I wanted to bring up: Ducks gloves.
Oh yeah,
Ducks gloves. This might be the biggest news actually that we have to talk about. So the Ducks will have 2 different colorways of gloves this season. So last week we talked about the fact that there was this picture where they're all black with the orange cuffs, and now it looks like they have 2 versions. They have all orange with the black cuff, and then vice versa. So your thoughts on that?
I don't know if I have thoughts. I miss the orange fingers. I wish they kept the orange fingers on the black gloves. The orange gloves, I want to see them with the white jersey. I want to see them in the look because right away I don't love them fully, but I'm open to having my opinion change.
They look like the Hurricanes or like Devils gloves. That's kind of what they remind me of. I mean, I like the idea of, I just find it really funny because the Samuelis get this kind of reputation for being like budget owners, and that's never been true, but like spending, like you have to buy all those gloves. You need 2 full sets of gloves.
Yeah.
And teams don't just buy the gloves for each player. There's multiple pairs per player, and then there's a whole stock for players that get called up, for players that get traded. So like this is a massive additional expense that they're incurring by having 2 different types of gloves. So this franchise is not cheap, is what I'm trying to say.
Yep, exactly. I would agree with that.
I don't really love the orange look, but I like the black though. The black is better than the orange finger look.
I want to see it on the ice. That's my view of it.
Yeah.
So
okay. Well, we just hit the hour mark, so this is perfect timing. Thank you for listening, everyone, and we will be back next week. Have a good one.
Bye.